welcome to today's top story. Very excited to be talking about cannabis and medical cannabis. We've been talking about it actually quite a bit because it is one of the top stories that we're dealing with here in Sault Ste. Marie and of course provincially and in Canada now because we are legalized, of course. And what does that mean and what regulations are in place and what about medical marijuana? How does that fit in? Joining us from the Shoppers Drug Mart affiliation is Mitchell Zorzit. Mitch, first, good to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Good,
Appreciate it.
No problem. Now tell me about your history as a franchisee, because as a franchisee, I didn't realize this. I always thought you had one store.
Right now there's two in Sault Ste. Marie. We have one on Cambria Mall. Our busier location, we're 8 a.m. till midnight, Monday to Friday. We offer the most convenience for patients.
Great makeup too.
Great makeup selection. Yeah, we have a great team over there. Just try and make sure that we are the after-hours care pharmacy for all of our patrons in Sault Ste. Marie. We also have a West End location, the second line location, which is by No Frills, and they have a great team over there too to help the west side of Sault Ste. Marie as well.
So tell us about the status of medical marijuana, because I understand that Shoppers Drug Mart is working with the government to supply medical marijuana to people. Is that a go now, or are you still pending?
So in Ontario, Shoppers Drug Mart did release an online platform, and this had to do with a lot of the changes that happen in regulation in terms of medical cannabis being given out to patients. It actually used to be a very rigorous process. There used to be only one licensed provider that physicians would have to do a lot of paperwork for, submit it, and in order to be covered, you had to have very strict criteria because at the time it was an illegal substance, right? So as the years go on and more information is coming out about medical cannabis, the laws and regulations have changed, and as you mentioned, cannabis is now legal. So the rules and laws that govern the distribution and how much people can have had to change basically overnight. So Shoppers Drug Mart applied to obtain a license in order to distribute or to sell medical cannabis. And earlier in December, they were given approval by Health Canada in order to go ahead and sell it. Now, it's important to know that Shoppers Drug Mart, they're not growing their own cannabis. What they're doing is they actually set up with 10 licensed providers and giving patients a little more of a selection in that process.
And the marijuana, the cannabis, is not in the store per se. For instance, it's an online purchase at this point, or a prescription.
Absolutely. So yes, it is a prescription in order to get medical cannabis, and that is what Shoppers Drug Mart is selling right now, is medical cannabis. You're not going to find it in any type of retailer right now. Legislation in place, you cannot get it at a corner store, a mom and pop shop. You will not be able to find it at a pharmacy, but feel free to come by the store, and I'll be happy to give you information about medical cannabis and what it can do to you or for you. But at this point, it is strictly an online system where the product gets shipped directly from the wholesaler or the licensed provider to the doorstep in a very discreet manner.
So it goes to the patient's doorstep?
It could go to the patient or the physician.
And they need a prescription. So what does that look like? Is that a standard prescription?
Sort of.
Because of the regulations, I'm thinking.
Exactly. So a standard prescription, say you go to the hospital, you get a prescription for an antibiotic per se. It's going to have your name on the prescription. It's going to have your doctor's signature at the bottom. What it's going to have is the medical name of the product. It's going to have a strength, instructions for use, number of capsules or tablets, as well as any refills that the doctor wishes to prescribe. A medical document is called basically a prescription in medical cannabis. It is a little bit different, where it does require a little bit more information about the patient. It requires the doctor to write down their full license and address on the form. But what's different of it is it doesn't actually need to include the strength of THC or CBD, which are the two main components of cannabis. That's pretty much left to the patient. Now, the doctor would have to write down the amount of grams that the patient would consume in a day, as well as an expiry on the prescription, which is maximum 1 year. So in terms of a dosing, it's very less strict than your normal typical prescription.
Is there a concern because of that then, that people might use too much of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is kind of where shoppers and their portfolio right now kind of differentiates themselves from other licensed providers. Basically, right now, patients would obtain their medical document. They would fill out the registration form with the licensed provider, and then they would go ahead and start basically selecting the strain that they want, without really seeking any type of healthcare advice. So when you're looking at cannabis, there's actually a lot of cannabinoids that have an impact in terms of the therapeutics of it, but some of them might impact your drowsiness, it might cause side effects. So you might not get the health information that you need from going to just a straight licensed provider versus going to the Shoppers Drug Mart portal. Now, in saying that, though, when you apply and you fill out all your information to register with it, which you can find you can come by the pharmacy, I'll gladly walk you through the process. You are in contact with an actual pharmacist that has training in medical cannabis. So I'm biased, I'm a pharmacist. I think that a pharmacist needs to be involved in all levels of a person's healthcare, including something like medical cannabis. What a lot of people don't actually realize is that cannabis can have interactions with a lot of different medications. And there are certain disease conditions that are considered to be contraindications to cannabis use.
Oh.
Exactly.
So there's so much we don't know as a layperson, I mean.
Absolutely. So I just think when I like to ask people when I'm going through their medications with them if recreational cannabis is something that they're using it, because overall it's just really important for pharmacists to look at the complete profile and at least help and educate patients on how cannabis might affect the drugs that they're currently taking. It might cause an increase or a decrease in side effects of certain medications that they're taking. So that kind of holistic approach, even though, I just feel like,
You know what? It's interesting too, because you can, technically you could take too much of any prescription, and that's where, in my experience, the Shoppers Drug Mart has been very diligent about timing your refills for the right time. If you need something ahead of time for holidays, for instance, and you're not quite done, you know what I mean? Like they're very good at knowing you, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a job of pharmacists, and I have a great pharmacy team that speak really, really highly of. What they do is they're trained to look at the safety profile of any medication that you're taking, whether it be recreational cannabis, how alcohol affects it, even drug interactions between the medications you're taking and your certain disease state. So it is really important that you keep your pharmacist informed, because they're able to document these types of things on your file and look to see if any consequences or there's any risks to you.
Do you feel any pressure with regards to being a pharmacist in this day and age, especially now with the new cannabis laws? I'm thinking because in Northern Ontario, for instance, and some more remote communities, even here sometimes, it's tough to get to your doctor. You're looking at an hour's wait in emergency. So I think that a lot of people are looking to their pharmacists now with more questions. And it's amazing how helpful they've been for myself in particular, and so many people are saying that, well, I can't get a hold of my doctor, I'm going to talk to my pharmacist. So does that put extra pressure on you with regards to the cannabis situation, or is it just another drug in your mind?
Well, that's a great question, actually. Both, I would say. I would say both. It is something extra, but it is used for medical purposes. There is literature out there right now that suggests it does have benefits in neurologic pain, and it has benefits in spasticities due to MS or Parkinson's. So there is some literature coming out that if this is an agent that's going to help people, this is something that we need to be informed with. And I have to give a major shout out to the Shoppers organization in helping to train our pharmacists and providing us with continuing education to be able to help us service our patients that way.
It's really forward thinking, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Honestly, it wasn't 10, 15 years ago where it was very challenging for patients to even get a prescription for medical cannabis. There's tons of regulations in place. And now that it's legal, it's starting to come more to the forefront. And patients I'm finding they're not quite even asking their doctor for prescriptions anymore for it, because it's so accessible online as a recreational product. So like I keep reiterating, making sure that we are you're letting your pharmacist know that if you are using this, let them know so they can make sure that you're safe.
Terrific. Just before we go, to clear it up, somebody gives me a prescription, a doctor gives me a prescription for medical cannabis. I take it to you at Shoppers Drug Mart. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that I'm getting it from the store because it's online. So what time lapse are we looking at there?
Great. So what happens is, yes, you get your medical document from the doctor. Your doctor can actually submit the document directly to Shoppers Drug Mart Cannabis Center. You can drop the prescription off at the pharmacy. They'll ask you to fill out a registration form, and the experts at Shoppers Drug Mart Cannabis Care Center, which could be a pharmacist, would contact you to make arrangements. Right now, the medication is shipped via Canada Post, so it is a fairly streamlined process because it is medication. Medication is important that people get it in a timely manner. It's shipped via Canada Post, so the shipping times vary depending on the region of Canada that you're from. But when you go and you log in, you have access to consultation through people that are trained in cannabis for medical purposes, and so yeah, it's a very streamlined process.
I think it's awesome too that you're emphasizing that, come and talk to us, come and see us and let us know, because I think especially with an aging population, they're intimidated by the computer, they don't do the internet, and you say to them, oh, you can get it online. They have no clue. So it's awesome that they can go to you and ask these questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't hesitate at all to come on by. There is a website, www.shoppers.ca/cannabis, and there's also a number you can call as well to reach the clinic.
Terrific. So good of you to stop in. I appreciate it, Mitch.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the info.
Wonderful.
We'll be back right after this break.